first contact with Joshua put.
Hello, Earthlings. How you doing today? Welcome back to First Contact Radio. We've arrived on another Thursday. Today it is the 5th day of October, 2017 on the Gregorian calendar. However, on the Jewish calendar, the year is different. 5778 is the year. Let's take a look at what is going on over here on the Jewish calendar. The Jewish calendar is the one that syncs up with the biblical story, so it is important because if we want to follow what's going on in the Bible, we want to look at a timeline, we look at this calendar. So yesterday was the eve of Sukkot. Today is the first full day. So remember, the festivals, the holidays, holy days, they begin at sundown. So here we are on Sukkot. It is the 15th day of Tishri and this first day of the festival, which lasts for 7 days, which is a remembrance of the Exodus. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that as we get on toward the end of the show, but that is where we're at. We're in one of these holy days. And remember, we just came out of Rosh Hashanah, which was the beginning of the New Year cycle, the celebration of Adam and Eve, and then we went into Yom Kippur, which was the Day of Atonement, which was a day of forgiveness and atoning for the things that we did wrong in preparation for the new year, that we might go forth with a fresh start. And now we have this Exodus, which is the time when the Jews, the Hebrews, escaped from Egypt after Moses came and laid down the law, so to speak, and here we are. Okay? From a planetary position, so we know the energy that we're dealing with around us, we are in the sun sign for a short while yet of Libra. We could see that we are only 12 degrees into Libra. There's 30 degrees, so we still have another 18 degrees to go yet. Okay, so that's going to take us through the rest of this month, or a good portion of this month, October, till later in the month. And our moon sign, which is directly opposite from us at the moment, is in Aries. Okay, so we have like a nice opposition between here. I like to think of this as a clock. The only difference is things move the opposite direction because the sun and all the planets are moving around in a counterclockwise direction. Some of these you may notice are still in the similar positions where they have been because they move very slow. These planets move a lot slower. Others move faster. So the sun moves faster. It takes 30 days. It goes through each one of these, roughly every 30 days, as it changes from one sign to the next. The moon sign goes faster, so it goes through these signs at a lot quicker. One sign or every 2.5 days. And so it'll be in Aries, and then it'll be in Taurus in a couple days from now, and then Gemini. Sort of like the two hands on the clock. This one is the one that moves slower, so this would be the hour hand, and then the minute hand would be this one here. The outer hand here, which is showing us the conscious mind, what our overall conscious mind is looking at, what are we considering, or the unconscious mind is what is underneath the surface that is pushing our buttons of these things that we are looking into. Now, I always like to take a look at, and I know I get comments from you as well that I know you like this information, of how we relate the tarot into the astrology, because this is really one big energy pool that we're all in together. Okay, you have the earth plane, you've got the firmament above that, and in between we have this field of energy. We're moving around in this field of energy that is affected every single day and filled with energy from a variety of sources. So if we go out into this energy and we understand a bit more of what we're dealing with, then we have the opportunity to be a little bit more effective as opposed to getting bounced around like a pinball in a machine because we're just getting hit by the energy. So I always think it's important to be aware of what it is that we are dealing with. So right now our sun sign, our conscious mind, is here. It relates to this card, the card of justice. It's all about balance. This card is all about air. okay? Air. The tarot card or the suit of swords represents air. If you take the first letter S away, you're left with words. So an indication is that air represents words or even actions that we do. Now, it's always important if we're going to create a balance in our lives, as this card implies, is that we are able to apply this balance through the things that we say and the things that we do. We also have to be aware that sometimes we can say things that hurt us, so we have to avoid those things just as much as we want to avoid doing the things that hurt us. So we want to say and do things that help us and avoid saying and doing things that hurt us. So this is where we're at, okay? We've got air, and air moves. It's not stable. It does, or it's not stationary. It continues to move. So over this period of time, while we're in this sign, there is movement that's taking place as the air continues to move. There is an opportunity always to find this balance and a continual seeking of justice that we are able to come to figure out what's going on. I like to think of it right now. I see a great example. In the past, we've had incidents occurred on American soil, and there have been small groups of people who have asked questions about them. Now, what is different about this event that happened in Las Vegas is there's a lot of people asking questions, which is a really good sign. More people want to know what's really going on. Now, our moon sign at the moment here is in Aries. Aries is represented by the Emperor. Aries is the very first sign. We can see it right here. It's the first of the signs of the zodiac, okay? This is like the ending point, the last, and the beginning. So we're now beginning a new cycle for the moon phase while we are in the middle of a cycle of the sun phase. So with this moon phase here, Aries, the unconscious mind, Aries is fire. Fire flickers, so it continues to move. Fire represents ideas. It's represented by the suit of wands, like the magician who is able to take that wand, point it, and create magic. What is really going on is the magician is organizing his creative thoughts, focusing those, and the wand is simply representative of the vehicle that is being used to focus all of those thoughts. Well, we ourselves are that magic wand. So we can focus our thoughts, and we're just reminded that we do so through the process of organization. He who sets in order is a phrase that goes along with this card because we're setting everything in order, okay? Aries is the first sign. In order to go on a trip, what do? We plan our trip. We plan the activities we're going to do. And then along the way, we try to match that as best as we can, depending upon how we want to go about our activities. But if we are like the emperor and we put things in order, then everything works well. And setting things in order is very important because the emperor's job in the scheme of things is to make sure things are moving properly and in order. And when things get out of order, when things aren't working right, the emperor steps in to help reorganize things so that we can continue to move forward. Okay, so this is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with air and we're dealing with fire. Just think of how those two elements operate together. You can have the air could be blowing nice and gently so that the fire in itself is stoked by the air and they're complementing each other. Or the air could blow and blow the fire out, which could be very frustrating because if this energy here, you see all the red color around it. If the energy of fire is suppressed, then it can become very frustrating, and the element of Mars or the planet of Mars, which is associated with that, could get in, and now you're starting to get a buildup of energies, which could become very aggressive and angry or even warlike. So those are some things to be concerned about. We don't want to go into the warlike phase. We want to go into the creative phase, and we do so by organizing, keeping things in order. Our moon phase is just about to that full moon. We're going to be there in a very short period of time. In Los Angeles, the full moon will be at exactly 11:40 a.m. That is 2 hours and 31 minutes from now. We'll be at that full moon. Okay. All right, so let's jump over to what's going on in the world, try to catch up with some of the information. The big story that we're hearing about right now is what took place in Las Vegas. I pulled up a link for you here. I'm going to leave that for you so you can go watch this. But what this is a press conference that took place with the police and the FBI. This took place yesterday in regards to the shooting. Now, there are some very important things that occurred during the course of police, this press conference that took place. You have the police chief. Let me point out here. You've got the police right here. And these other gentlemen back here are FBI personnel. And during the course of this talk, you could see many times these FBI personnel are looking at the police officer very intently to make sure he says the right thing and doesn't say the wrong things because they're guarding over him. You see, the FBI doesn't want to let the story get out, and they keep saying during these press conferences that they're not really entertaining the social media discourse that is going on out there right now. Whereas the police chief is coming on and he's talking about things that seem to be in line with the discourse of the social media, namely that there were more shooters that were involved. So he's giving hints. He's saying this could not have been done by one person, that there were others that were involved. He also says this was very well thought out. And, there was things like explosives in the car. There was a lot of planning that went into this, not to something that would be done by one person. He confirmed that the note that we all saw in the picture was not a suicide note, but perhaps something else. So he hasn't informed us of what that something else might be, other than it's not a suicide note. Now, just to remind you, the theory that is out there is that Stephen Paddock is an undercover agent, was an undercover agent, and he's been working with other undercover agents, quite possibly this woman from the Philippines who was just in and did the interview with the FBI. They're not saying what they talked about, but apparently this woman, after a lengthy interview, was then released. And the questions are, well, why did that happen? Because there seem to be so many connections. Well, if she indeed is also connected to these alphabet agencies, then that might tie in with why she might have been released. But the theory is that Stephen was an undercover agent, that this entire operation was a sting operation that went really wrong, that Stephen was shot by members of ISIS who he was doing these gun trading with. They shot him because they found out that he was an undercover agent and this was a sting operation, and then they carried out the shooting from the room, and that Stephen at that point was already dead. This is a theory that is out there. Of course, the FBI is not corroborating this theory as would be expected because it implicates them in a big, big screw up. Not only does it implicate them in a screw up of this man having been killed as an informant or an undercover agent, but it also leaves open the possibility that there are ISIS terrorists running loose through Vegas. We don't know where they might be, but we do know on the night of the shooting there were multiple shootings that were taking place. It was not just in one location. This is confirmed by listening to the police scanners for that night, which are readily available online. You can hear there was definitely more than one shooter. Those who have experience in warlike situations, they understand that they are hearing more than one gun. So there's a whole lot of problems with this. A whole lot of problems. The press conference is there if you want to listen to it, and you'll be able to see from time to time this FBI agent keeps looking over at the officer, kind of eyeballing him just to make sure he's not saying the wrong things, because the FBI is really trying to be protective of this, because from what is being investigated, they screwed up badly. And we all know that they're not going to let us know what's going on. James Comey has really done a number on destroying the reputation of the FBI. Now they are the Department of Matters, and the question is, does this situation really matter to them enough that they're going to inform us? Hopefully it does, but at this point in time, that hasn't been the case. They're still doubling down on their lies. We'll see where it goes from there. In other news, Mike Pence held the very first meeting of the National Space Council today. That would be Vice President Mike Pence. held that meeting. Very interesting meeting that went on. He talked about the United States commitment to wanting to get back into space, how it's been over 40 years since we have really explored anything space-wise. He talked about the moon a couple of times and just really kind of confirmed a commitment for us to get going and stop wasting time. So we'll see how this all unfolds. This is just getting started with him, but it's good to see that there is an effort to get out and make something happen. We'll see how it all unfolds from there. Now, very important news is we're continuing to ask the question of who is funding the terrorists, because terrorists get funded from somewhere. They use that money and they go and they buy weapons and they buy the things that they're going to buy that terrorize other individuals. And there is a report coming out here that names Soros, Kellogg's, and Ford as groups that have given the millions to the anti-Trump resistance group. This comes to us from the Daily Caller. And just in case you did not know where the Daily Caller is about, let me pull something up here because I would like to show you something. Where are we at here? Where are we at here? Anyway, the Daily Caller, this is uh, Tucker. Tucker is the one who is behind this. He's one of the gentlemen involved with the running of this paper. And so let's see what it says here. This is from Peter Hassan, associate editor. Major left-wing foundations have given millions of dollars to a leading anti-Trump resistance group, a new report reveals. The W.K. Kellogg's Foundation, the Ford Foundation, and the Open Society Foundation have channeled millions of dollars to the Center for Community Change, according to 2015 tax documents obtained by the Washington Free Beacon. The documents provide a rare glimpse into the relationship between big progressive donors and the left-wing activists who have mobilized against President Trump and other Republican lawmakers. As a 501c3 organization, the center isn't required to publicly disclose the source and nature of its donations. Okay, so that's problematic because we all have trusted these organizations. It says the W.K. Kellogg Foundation gave $3 million to the Center of Community Change. Ford Foundation gave another $2.3 million to the center, while the Open Society provided another $1,750,000 to the center as revealed by these documents. Okay, so looks like Tony the Tiger is involved with funding terrorism. That's not really a good thing because a lot of people eat the Kellogg cereal. So I think it's very important also to know that Ford Motor Company is involved. Strangely enough, that during the course of these NFL protests that are going on, Ford Motor Company happens to be one of those, the owner of the Ford family, the owner of the Lions, has really come out in support of what the players are doing, which is anti-American, anti-police, and now we're seeing that they're involved helping to fund terrorism. One hand washes the other, and it's really kind of weird all around. Okay, here's a story that is important that we've all been talking about for some time, wondering how this is going to work out. House panel approves $10 billion for the border wall. The House Homeland Security Committee approved Wednesday a border security bill that includes $10 billion for a border wall. The Border Security for America Act, proposed by committee chairman Michael McCall of Texas, was passed on a party line of 18 to 12 vote. The bill includes $10 billion in border wall funding, $5 billion to improve ports of entry, and adds 5,000 agents to both the Border Patrol and Customs and Border Protection. The legislation would also authorize the federal government to reimburse states up to $35 million for use of National Guard assets to reinforce border security. The legislation will head to the House floor amid debate whether border security provisions should be attached for potential legislation to protect recipients of the rescinded Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program. Democrats criticized the bill as a political stunt to appease President Trump, who proposed the border wall as a central point of his campaign. There was a time in the not too far distant past when this committee cared for facts, data, and results, said Ranking Member Bernie Thompson of Mississippi. Thompson also called the Republican proposal an attempt to fulfill a misguided campaign promise. The call praised Trump's focus on border security and urged the committee to seize the opportunity to legislate this issue. We finally have a partner in the White House who has prioritized this issue, and it's time for Congress to do his job, he said. Okay, very important, this wall. Why is the wall important? Because it allows us to protect our borders, to keep those out of the country that might cause us harm. Who might cause us harm? Well, let's see. Currently, there's a gun situation that we are investigating in Las Vegas that seems to involve situations of ISIS members. How did ISIS members get into the country? Maybe they came through uh, the airports, or maybe some of them came through the border areas. We have a lot of problems of things coming through the border areas, but a nice wall would help to fix that situation. Keeps the bad guys out of our country, and it also keeps bad guys from going into Mexico. How many times have we watched movies over the years? Where do the bad guys in America go after they create the crimes? They go to Mexico. Okay? In America, just think if that's reversed. If in America, the people that kept coming here had the same mentality as the ones who keep going there after they commit crimes, it's very easy to see that we have criminals coming into our country that need to be stopped. But if they say, oh, we're going to commit a crime, now we're going to go to America so that we're safe. And we got a country full of criminals that escape from Mexico because they don't want to get caught by the Mexican authorities, in the same way that people escape to Mexico so they don't get caught by the American authorities. A wall fixes that problem, because then people have to go through the points of entry that are a bit more protected than the open borders. Okay. Another story here, NetRight Daily tells us that more states join Wisconsin and California in saying no election hack by the Russians, dispute the DHS findings of 21 states targeted. The Department of Homeland Security's assessment that 21 states' election systems were somehow targeted by Russian hackers has fallen apart at the seams. In Wisconsin and California, for example, the supposed targets were unrelated agencies that a Department of Workforce Development that distributes unemployment benefits, and another that handles information technology for state agencies, but not for elections. Now it turns out that the activity reported initially as targeting was actually scanning of publicly faced government websites looking for vulnerabilities that do not even tabulate vote counts. In the majority of the 12 states targeted, only preparatory activity like scanning was observed, said the Department of Homeland Security spokesperson Scott McConnell. In some cases, this involved direct scanning of targeted systems. In other cases, malicious actors scan for vulnerabilities in networks that may be connected to those systems or have similar characteristics in order to gain information how to later penetrate their target. Okay, so the whole Russian story, it's a bunch of BS. Seth Rich was a Bernie bro who then later got hired by the Hillary Clinton campaign. Prior to working there, he was murdered because he was onto them about the corruption that was taking place. And he had been the one who leaked the information out from the DNC. It wasn't hacked. He's the one who leaked it out. He leaked it out to WikiLeaks. This wasn't the Russians. But the Democrats are going crazy trying to prove every which way that this was the Russians who did it. They even went so far as to go to Facebook, but all that the Facebook connection revealed was that Facebook and Russia were connected together, but it was in order to help Black Lives Matter and to help Hillary. You see, no matter which path they go down on this, none of this implicates Donald Trump. All of the stuff is implicating Hillary or Democrats. They are the party of corruption. They are the party that has been hurting our country for such a long period of time. They'll tell you otherwise, but the party of slavery is the Democratic Party. The party of the KKK is the Democratic Party. The party of Jim Crow laws is the Democratic Party. We can go throughout history and we could see all of the problems that have occurred coming through the Democratic Party. If you look at other countries that imposed gun control, they were socialist democratic parties. They took the guns away and then they went and rounded up the people because the people couldn't protect themselves anymore once their guns were gone. And once those people were rounded up, they were exterminated. 56 million people have been exterminated by gun control laws that were put in place because then the people who were rounded up couldn't protect themselves. So gun control has always been a ploy leading to the next phase, which is extermination. If you're a Democrat or liberal out there and you're just pushing the gun control idea and you're not aware of that, well, then you're just a useful pawn. And if you are aware of it, you should be ashamed of yourself for pushing a system that has just been resulting in murders and genocide for so many civilizations. Now, we're going to change gears back over here to this holy day of Sukkot, which is upon us for today and the next 6 days. You can see here some practical info about it on the calendar of when it occurs, how you prepare for it, building the sukkah, the 4 kinds. Okay, if we go over here, we take a look at what these 4 kinds are all about. On every day of the holiday of Sukkot, with the exception of Shabbat, there is a mitzvah to take the 4 kinds: a date palm, a citron, 3 myrtle branches, 2 arvarat willow branches, and you're going to take these on the first day of the Hadar tree, date palm fronds, and you shall rejoice before the Lord your God for a 7-day period of time. Okay, these are the 4 kinds that are here. The Sukkot is like an outdoor type setting. The whole point is this. I'm going to leave this link for you. I'm just going to explain. The whole point is this. When there was the Exodus from Egypt, it was a big deal. And in order for people to leave Egypt, they needed to have a trust, not only in Moses, but also in the plan that Moses was following. And that plan was them traveling from point A to point B across the desert. In order to do that, they needed to survive and live in the desert. And as they were moving about, they were not living in stationary homes, but in very temporary locations that they were making, these sukkahs, often made of just the branches and the leaves and the things that they would find. They would be eating very simple food that they were finding, and that's where the 4 kinds come in. And the whole concept through this period of time is faith in God, because as they moved through the desert, we know that there were many instances and examples where they had to really show their faith. And ultimately they were rewarded by the receiving of the 10 Commandments, and then ultimately years down the road getting to that promised land. So this is what this is about. It's a period of faith for us to remember that God has our back, and if we simply trust the processes that are unfolding before us, then we shall understand all of that. Remember, as I brought up yesterday, there's a real dark archonic influence that is involved with our life, has been involved. We need to overcome this, and the way you overcome these things is through faith. The traditions of the Jewish community are really beautiful because they remind us of these processes of faith. We could take them at face value for what they are and just have fun with these different days and the different traditions, or we can look at it deeper to understand the deeper implications. So as we go forth this day and over the course of this holy season of Sukkot, let us, my friends, let us remember the faith. So Heavenly Father, Heavenly Mother, we pray this day that we might be able to be stronger in faith, stronger in our convictions about helping not only ourselves, but helping the world to be a better place. We pray that we bring love down into the equation today so that we might love ourselves and love each other more, that we might express more faith into the world, faith in who you are and what you are in our lives. Amen. That's it for today, my friends. I'll be back tomorrow. I love you. Keep loving each other. Talk to you soon. Peace. I'm out of here.